Okay, thank you very much, staff, for that little. We've had a little bit of a hiccup there to the public, just to let you know. We're now live streaming, and we're starting about nearly 10 minutes late, which is the first time in my history of being the mayor. So I can put that down to technology, not human error. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody along here today to our second Zoom council meeting. And we have a full house of councillors. The only one that's apologised, we have an apology from our CEO. He's not able to attend today because of health. So I want us all to be not upstanding today, but Pastor Paul Hickey is going to take us in open prayer. So Paul, it's over to you. Thank you very much.
Let's bow heads, folks. Lord, we thank you today that indeed the meeting will go smoothly from here on in, that the technology will behave itself. Above all else, we thank you, Lord, that our district and our community are in good health. We thank you, Lord, for the leadership of our community, and we pray that your wisdom will continue to flow as they make the decisions they make, and our community moves forward in the midst of the unusual circumstances we live in currently. Father, we pray for a very, very productive meeting in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Paul, and you're welcome to keep in contact and stay in the meeting if you wish. You're more than welcome. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, we have declaration of conflict of interest. Does anybody have a declaration of conflict of interest? No, there's been none. I'd like to move on then, please, if I can, to item 1 is confirmation of council minutes on 1.1 Ordinary Council on 28th of April on pages 1 to 5. We have a mover, Councillor Drew. We have a seconder, it's Councillor Savage. Okay. Anything in those minutes pertaining that you would wish to talk about?
Malcolm, on
yes.
page 3, when we're talking about the water,
yes.
Second bullet point, it's got used more than 10,500 cubic metres a day. Did we want to raise that? Because in actual fact, it was 13-14.
Look, I think we just need to make sure that Hanu is okay with that. Hanu, what do you got to say about that?
Generally, when we go over 10,500 a day, we start having issues keeping the reservoirs full. So even though our risk consent goes up to 14,000, our pump capacity and to treat really is only about 10,500 a day.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yes, I think.
Yes, yep. Thank you.
You happy with that?
Yep.
Okay, so we have a mover and a second. All those in favour, I put it to you. Aye. All good. Those against, carried. Thank you very much. Item 2 on the agenda is receipt of council committee minutes. 2.1 regulatory and services. Councillor Iron, please.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I'd like to move that recommendation tabled here that the minutes of the Regulatory and Service Committee meeting held on the 12th of May 2020 be confirmed as a true and accurate record. Thank you.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Rangahika. I put that to you. Sorry, before we put it to you, is there anything that you wish to raise on those minutes? There been none? Okay, we have a mover and a second. I put that to you. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Okay, and item 2.2 on the agenda on the 15th of May, Audit and Risk Committee. I will move that to those minutes if I can on pages 9 to 12. Do I have a seconder, please?
Second, Your Worship.
Councillor Sparks seconds it. Is there any questions on any of those minutes on the Audit and Risk Committee? It was our first one we had on Zoom. It was a bit challenging, but no, we got through.
Through yourself, Your Worship.
Yes.
On page 11, item 6.
Yes.
Just looking for that statement, and I did actually note it in the meeting last week. The backstop is 25%. Please, if we can just get confirmation of what that was relating to, that statement? I just see that comment there, page 37, item 20.
Peter, can you just,
Yes, thank you, Worship. What is meant by that is if council has not resolved its rates by the time the first instalment is due, you can charge 25%
Right.
of the previous year's rates. Now, if you recall, the chair said it's probably not the best option to do. It'd be preferable to extend out your due date. And
that's right, yes, yeah.
so that was what we could use if we want to.
Yep, okay. We don't want to talk about it right now.
So thank you, Worship.
It's not an option, not an option. Under the circumstances, it's certainly not an option. But thank you for that. Thank you for clarifying it. Is there anything else on those minutes? They've been done. I would like to put that to you. We have a mover and a second. All those in favour, aye. To the contrary, carried. Thank you very much. Item 3 on the agenda is the action schedule on pages 13 to 20. Anything on those action schedule that you want to bring up, please?
Your Worship, page 19.
Yes.
The first item, it was in the Regulatory and Services Committee meeting minutes. I just have, we did congratulate those people who voluntarily helped pick up rubbish on our state highway.
Yes.
I have a concern about safety. I'll mention the name Higgins. I won't go any further than that.
Yep.
Top 5 hazard and audit and risk committee being on the roadside. Just concerned about how they set themselves up. Do they wear high vis? Have they got hazard lights on? I am aware that on this particular occasion, I don't think the hazard lights were on, and I don't think they all had high vis from what I've been told.
Okay.
So big concern there that,
Yes.
we look after our staff and congratulate the public for helping totally, but they must be safe, and also experience nearly losing a child to a rear end on a main road. So, just leave that with the committee.
Okay. Well, we need to make contact with those people and just check on and to make sure that that is happening, because it is an issue. And but no, I can't answer that. I'm not sure. I have to find out. So thank you for that. Just on page 15, the elusive insurance on the Blue Bridge. Can I bring that up, please? And when I read it, council made an offer and the contractor made a counter offer. Who are we actually negotiating? Are we negotiating with the contractor now, or are we negotiating with his insurance company?
Through your worship, where the negotiation is through the insurer's lawyers, and it's through our lawyers. So the initial offer was from their lawyers to us, essentially a pretty low offer. We've countered. They have not responded to that counter. We've engaged an expert, Opus, and that's through our lawyers, to do a report on the status of the bridge and whether it was necessary to actually remove the bridge. So, as much as we're trying to progress this thing, they seem to be in stall mode.
So it's not the council made an offer and the contractor made a counter offer. It's not the contractor though himself. It's his lawyers or his insurance company.
Yeah, it's the lawyers.
Okay. Okay.
And the lawyers of the insurers. The contractor really doesn't have very much involvement.
Yeah. No. Well, I certainly hope he's looking very seriously at a new insurance company. honestly.
Yeah, well,
I think we need to have a serious discussion about that with them, and this is just not good enough. I have to say that I have some concerns about managers on our side, and unfortunately, fortunately, they're no longer with us. But when you have a variation of contract, there should have been a hell of a lot more open dialogue go on between two parties. But you know, we did have concerns about this whole deal. All I can suggest to the contractor is that he makes a serious discussion with his insurance company, and you know, there's plenty of insurance companies around that would like his business, I'm sure. Thank you for that. Any other further comments?
I was going to ask for my own clarity, Peter, how many times counter offers can be put on the table? Like, is there a time frame? Understand that this has been a long, drawn out process, but apart from what you've shared with us, what are the expectations that we can have as a council in regards to timeframes, or will it be ongoing?
We're endeavouring through our lawyers to come to a conclusion, because, as you know, this has been a long, drawn-out process. The difficulty with this is the insurers' lawyers don't seem to have any motivation to settle this whatsoever. And they appear to me to not care one iota about the reputational risk, reputation of their client.
Yep.
Which is quite a concern if I was the contractor that insured with them. But anyway, we'll keep you posted. The difficulty is every time I chase the lawyers, there's more costs involved, and I'm not so sure the outcome's going to be that brilliant anyway.
So that's why I brought this up, Peter, because if you're gonna spend $1 to chase 50 cents, you know, we really need to cut our losses here. But I would suggest that we make that quite make everybody aware in the organisation what insurance company has been involved, and if any other contractors have the same insurance company, we need to really be very careful of who we're dealing with in future. But, you know, let's get a bit more aggressive with this. But crikey, this has gone on for far too long. There's too much waffling. Let's get on with it. And either they make and honestly, it's up to the contractor to get off his pants and do something about this immediately, because it's far too long. And we did make some fairly harsh decisions right from the start, but we brought him back into the camp, mainly because, you know, he's been a good contractor. But he really needs to make some harsh decisions with his insurance company and whoever's acting on their behalf. So yeah, I think David, you might have something a bit more to say about this than the rest of us.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. A couple of things I would add. Firstly, although the insurer's lawyers, Peter, seem to be dragging the chain, it's actually the insurer that calls the shots. So it's not up to the lawyers, it's the insurer that makes the decision. But the other thing that I would throw in is that if this thing is just going to drag on, as it seems to, there is a good option to consider, and that would be arbitration, whereby both parties appoint an independent arbitrator who then makes a binding decision, and that's it. I mean, it's a far more expeditious process than going through the courts. So I think, with respect, Peter, that would be a good matter to raise with our lawyers to go back to the other side on.
Yep. Okay. I think I'll raise it with them. We'd certainly talked to them about it before. They had advised that we should go down this track. But anyway, I'll discuss it with them, and when the mayor's next in, I'll let him know what the offer was and make sure that he's okay with how we go forward with it.
Yes, I'm, you know, these are a bit like some of those city taxi drivers, you know, when the meter starts running, they'll go the long way home every time. And it's not up to them to, they can talk to us and give us some advice, but I think that should have come to council rather than to staff to make a hell of a lot quicker decision over it. So, Peter, let's get this done ASAP, please.
Through the Mayor.
Yep. Yes,
I mean,
Councillor Green.
Sorry, Mayor, I just want to backtrack to page 19, what Councillor Ian said in your last comment and being supportive of this group out on the highway. I truly think we need to be supportive because I believe that their intent is of good intent. And so supporting them with PPE, action plan and all those other things. I do recognise that I've driven past them and I couldn't see them up until the last 100 metres, which was a little bit scary.
Yep.
But the amount of litter and rubbish that I see stacked up along that road, which actually isn't, I believe, Kaikoura District Council's property, but I still think we need to be proactive in supporting these individuals. That's all I want to say.
Yep.
Yeah, no, good comment, Councillor Rangihika. I have to say that although that is in the Whakatane district, I would challenge anybody to say it's not our rubbish. Honestly, a lot of when I spoke to some people the other day, they said, oh, it's because everybody's buying McDonald's and coming to work and throwing their paper out. You know what? I don't know if McDonald's are open at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. They may be. I don't know. I'm not a McDonald's lover, but I tell a lie there. I do have a partake a bit on the way home from Wellington with my councillors. But what I'm saying is that we certainly have to take some responsibility also. The most disappointing part is, though, and Hanu, I'd like you to have a word with their engineer, that they're putting the mower along there and mowing over the top of this rubbish and scattering it all over the place, and instead of being sizable plastic and cardboard that you can pick up, it's now mulched up and spread all over the place. So, you know, the common sense is just not there. I don't see what they're doing there. But I know that, and looking at Councillor Orr's comments about rural Whakatane, I sort of realise why they don't bother about what's going on in their rural areas, more so their towns. So I think it's, you know, we need to be a little bit more aggressive about this. And if you want me to talk to the Mayor about it, to shake the tree, well, just say so, please. Any other comments on the action schedule?
Your worship, just a couple, just a bit of clarity again on page 16.
16?
Yep, public forum, so it goes into the status there's final changes are dependent on NZTA. I'm just wondering, I know it was in public forum, Peter, but if the same kōrero that you've got there on page 13, that issues are regularly raised at any meetings with NZTA and at the Regional Land Transport Committee, I wonder if that can be put into that space as well, only because it's to do with the roading that is up there, and maybe underneath final change dependent on NZTA, that when council does go into those forums, they do remember the concerns that have been raised by the public and they regularly share them within those spaces. Just wondering, what do you think, Peter?
Yeah, listen, good idea. We'll add that commentary to that particular item.
Well, it'll just flow through from that page. Also, just another question, you know what I'm like with dates and timeframes, Peter? On page 17, item 2, public forum again, the status is awaiting response from requester. Just noticed it was back in 2019 in August. I wonder what else, if we have had no response, because there are certain timeframes for responses, can that be reflected in the status that you haven't heard anything from the requester and that it's been closed? Whatever process you have taken, can we please put it in there for the public to know what's actually happening, rather than we're still waiting since 2019. And then on that same page, 17, public forum, I noticed there, and thank you, that communications with Ms. Geary Raywin are going to be continued. Just wondering what those communications look like. Has a letter, email been sent I do realise that the committee hui was going to be pushed out, but how are we tracking those conversations? I only asked that because when I went to completed items, that wasn't part of the completed items listed around the communications, email, letter. The other corridor, last one. Got here. Again, on page 18, I do notice that the request was made by the committee or the councillors that a meeting invitation be sent out in level 1 to Mr. Mitchell. I know it's not level 1 and we've got a little way to get there, but also noted in the completed items that there was no correspondence trail to share that this is what council was looking at, just to inform him. So I'm wondering if communications have already been made. Have we missed putting them into the completed items?
Morris Mitchell, which one?
Yeah, on page 18. So I'm just wondering, I know that we're not in level 1, but how to track those communications and noting that it's not in the completed items that are listed. So that's for Ms. Geary, for Raywin, and also for Morris.
Well, they're not completed yet because we still going to communicate with them.
Yeah.
So I think for all 3 of them, they're all going to come back again at some point. The gymnastics equipment, in the next 6 months or so, I'm pretty sure they're going to come back again and ask for it. And we'll have to reiterate, but you can do it under the following conditions. So it's going to come back again. So we can close them, but it's going to be raised again at some point.
I'm not, it's around the status, because all it's got is we are awaiting the request a response from 2019. So if we put in there that correspondence has been had, they have up to 3 months to reply. We just need to be a little bit clearer on the boundaries or the timeframes, and they're not there. If I'm a public member, which I am, I would look at the date and then I would look at the status and think what's going on. So that's why I'm raising those 3 things.
So you would like us to just put in what we've actually done and complete them after a certain time frame?
As long as you put that, what actions have been followed, it can be very brief.
Oh, good. Now I'll put the actions in for each one of them, what we actually done. Okay, for the next one.
So
also make that correspondence happen, please. I do know that just to let them know, because they are gonna pick up our they are going to pick up the agenda, the minutes, and Morris is going to see that he's going to be contacted. So in hindsight, it's also nice to send a letter to say that as well to both him and Raywin.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Look, I don't know what the problem is here, because that's quite a straightforward request. But I can tell you now that Morris Mitchell has actually contacted me, and I've had a discussion with him. But I would have thought that, we talked about this at the last meeting a month ago, and nothing's happened. No, he's had no contact from staff. And this is not the mayor's job. This is we asked for that to be done.
I will write him in the else.
That's all. And saying, look, Morris, I apologise, we didn't come back to you, but we can't get together until we get into level 1, which I'm sure he will understand. And in fact, he's probably out duck shooting this morning. But it's just a matter of courtesy, and that's to wait around for them to come back again. It's just not acceptable. We don't want to do that. That's not the way we run things here. And it's not the way we're going to run things. We want to run things professionally and get back to them. Goodness gracious, you've got a man Friday working for you now. While he's running around looking for lights that are out, get him to go and see Morris Mitchell. Might have a cup of tea and might learn something. Thank you. Any other comments on the
if there's nothing further, Your Worship.
So will somebody move those action schedule?
Councillor Kingy move.
Kingy, yep, and seconded by Councillor Rangihick. I put those to you. All those in favour, aye. The contrary, carry. Thank you very much. Right, Now, on, goodness gracious, I've got paperwork here. On item 4 on the agenda is page 21 is my meeting schedule, and I'd like to move that, please, if I can have a seconder for it. Do I have a seconder?
Second, Your Worship.
Yes, my deputy, Councillor Tanui. Any questions?
Yes, Your Worship. In May, just a couple of the meetings, the meeting with the New Zealand Infrastructure Commission and the meeting with Phil Twyford. Anything in particular?
Yeah, look, yes, look, the infrastructure one is basically a little bit with the shovel-ready stuff that we've been talking about. Phil Twyford's was more to do with roading, being the Minister of Transport, and it's a clear, plain message. Don't be waiting for a whole lot of Santa Clauses to come down from the far north anymore. You know, we're under huge pressure. Roading's under huge pressure. The budget's under huge pressure, and it's sort of wait and sit and keep in line with what's going on in the area, particularly in the Bay of Plenty. Some of the big stuff like around Tauranga and Western Bays, big jobs are well and truly in front of anything that we might be looking at in the Eastern Bay of Plenty, I believe. But the smaller stuff, like, well, when I say smaller stuff, with the asking for roading, speed control and that sort of thing, those are sort of things that can happen a little bit easier, I believe, but it's just a matter of keeping the pressure on NZTA to make sure that they do some stuff about it. But once the Purewaki Trust development is finished, and I'm saying this with tongue-in-cheek right now because I hear some pretty alarming discussions going on from Minister Jones the other night on TV. I hope we're not one of those Dear John that he's going to send a letter to. Otherwise, it'd be Dear Malcolm, and look out, boy, oh boy, it'd be Dear Minister. Because these are some of the issues that we're talking about. So if that carries on, and I believe that Purewaki Trust have had some negotiation with NZTA, I think that the speed restriction thing right to our boundary will certainly change in the near future rather than immediately. There you go. And the infrastructure one is something that is on the agenda of every local authority in New Zealand. We all know that the infrastructure issues right across the board, and in our particular one, the Three Waters is the big one, and it is for everybody, and particularly as you know what's going on in Auckland today, and the likes, and watching as I say, watching that TV, and that water charges could be just around the corner. So let's hold on to our hats when that happens. But we did warn people: be very, very careful what you ask for. You might get it, and if you want to squander water, there's one way to fix it: charge you. And if they want to squander it, then they'll pay for it. So that was those two meetings.
Thank you.
Any other?
Through your
questions?
worship.
Yes.
Yep, through your worship. Sorry, just the second to last bullet point in May. Could we just note that was BD Ave, the turning of the soil in the Karakia?
It was actually Beatty Avenue, and it was Hardy Ave and Valley Road.
Oh, it was all three. So could we?
All three.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
all three. Great. And just an update, please, from our Labour list MP, Kitty Allen, your Zoom meeting with Kitty.
Yeah. Kitty Allen is, she's been working pretty closely with us and Tamati Coffee, particularly on post lockdown and where to from here. She's getting the iwis in our area to get them together to sort of make some decisions as to where they're going to be, and it's basically a wait and see, really, to see how things turn out in the next couple of weeks if we go to lockdown to 1. we want to do a stock take of anybody that may have lost their jobs, and we want to get a bit of a number from Mike Bryant as to where to from here. If we can do that, you know, we want to certainly progress and step in and help. Up until now, there hasn't been a lot of speaking of redundancies as such, but all of a sudden, I'm starting to hear whispers around the traps now that there may be some redundancies coming up because of the fact that some of these companies are getting to the end of their financial assistance with their staff, and there's certainly a lot of them are still well and truly down in their turnover. So you know, there may be some redundancies, and we may need to be a bit proactive in helping how we can keep going and keep these people in work. So yeah, it's a pie in the sky stuff. You know, nobody really knows. And you know, I mean, I was asked by the other mayors as to whether we should be looking at going into lockdown 1, and I said to them, I think we want to be a little bit careful rushing into it, because we're not out of the woods yet. And this last weekend was a little bit scary, knowing that when they opened the bars and such, that people would go a little bit silly, and some of that did happen, but not too bad. I think it was not too bad, and mainly I think is because the rules are a little bit vague, more than anybody breaking the rules. They're quite vague, and now I hear they're going to open it up to 100 people. Well, goodness gracious, that's we're not out of the woods yet. So let's wait and see. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a move and a second for that report.
Through your stuff, Your Worship. Sorry, just a couple of comments.
Yep, sorry.
In support of Councillor Iron, just confirming that was to start works on the flood mitigation detention ponds, not to start work on the bunds. That second to last point for the karakia. So the bunds have already been done. The karakia was actually for the detention pond start of works, if we could have that with accuracy corrected. And I just noted that the via Zoom comment has been omitted from the elected members' briefings. It's actually mentioned in every other meeting except for the 2 elected member briefings. So if those could just be added, it's on every other one.
Good one. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship.
Okay, with those amendments, please, I put this to you. All those in favour, aye?
Aye.
The contrary, carried. Thank you very much. Okay, item 5 on the annual plan performance for 9 months on pages 22 to 55.
Just through you, Your Worship. On page 24, I note that there's two lots of borrowing. I've just forgotten what they are for. Could I have an explanation, please?
Yes, the first lot is the current level of borrowing, that is debt that is due in the next year, and the second lot is the amount of borrowing that's due beyond 1 year. So that's current liabilities, and the other one is non-current liabilities.
When you have a bit of time, I wouldn't mind an email with the particular projects that actually make up those 2 lots of borrowing, please.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. It's the term leases, the finance leases on our printers and our telephone system.
Oh, thank you. And the other one, over on page 25, number 4, environmental services, I see that we've spent a bit of money there. Was that related to some pre-work we had to do for the dog pound, or is it for something else, please?
No, this is for getting all the designs completed for the dog pounds and get them all approved and getting consent sorted. So this is all basically just paperwork before we can build.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I have no further comments.
Your worship, just a query. I know that we do know that we have been under lockdown for some time now, and appreciate that we're not going to meet all levels of service and that our targets won't be achieved. And in some of the spaces, the comments don't actually reflect that the reason that we haven't been able to achieve those targets is because of COVID-19. I only say that because on page 53, it does allude to the fact that swimming pools, a lot of the swimming pools, public halls and facilities, we weren't able to achieve that target because of COVID lockdown. So just wondering if that can be seamless through the whole activities. It does, although it should be a no-brainer, it's nice to be consistent with the information that's provided, especially when the levels of service we're not our fault.
Yeah. Through you, Your Worship, you've got to remember we didn't go into lockdown until the 26th of March, and this report is up to the 31st of March. So some of our targets were still being achieved at the 31st of March. However, I wanted to highlight there's a good chance a lot of them won't be achieved because of the lockdown.
So there's that space to be able to do that, Peter.
It'll be done for the next quarters because they won't be achieved.
Thank you, Peter.
Any other questions? Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. On page 48, I see the reference to the 2 infringement notices from the trade waste from the dairy factory. Hanno, what's happening there, please?
So we did quite an amount of work with the dairy factory, so their effluent is more stable now. They no longer have the spikes that cause us significant problems. They still send a significant amount of waste still, and we charge them for that. We also did the big shut over January and February, and then we did a lot of optimization of chemical use and calibration of pumps through February and March. So I think the plant runs as good as it possibly can, or as efficient as it possibly can at this stage. But that has helped us to give us a bit of a buffer when we do have a spike in the effluent coming through, to deal with that and not necessarily breach our consent conditions. So we haven't had breaches for some time now, 6 or 8 weeks now. So we will see how it goes forward. So that looks like it's a thing of the past of having these consent breaches.
So my concern is if there is to be some financial penalty, I'm not sure whether it's the case or not, for these infringement notices, then I would have thought we should be passing that on to the dairy factory as the offending party, so to speak.
We had 2 fines of $750 each, and we've included them in their bills. I've billed the dairy factory well over $100,000 for the use of water and sewerage for this year so far, and the final bill will be about in excess of $50,000. So the total amounts of money that they are paying us for this service are significant, and we have included the 2 infringement notices there as well.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Any other questions or points of clarification? We have a recommendation.
Your Worship.
Happy to second, Your Worship.
Right, we have a mover for that recommendation, Councillor Kingy, seconded by Councillor Sparks. I put that to you. All those in favour, aye. To the contrary, carried. Thank you very much. Item 6 on the agenda is adoption of fees and charges on pages 56 to 66. Much of this is constant with what we've been doing last year. I don't think there's any changes at all. Peter, is that right?
That's correct, Your Worship.
I'm happy to move the recommendation.
We have a mover. Do we have a seconder? Can't see you all. Seconded by Councillor Savage. Any discussion? Right.
For you, Your Worship,
Yes,
it's only
Councillor.
little, it's only little, and
Yes.
I'm being finicky, but on page 60, under commercial prints 5x7, can we just have a decimal point rather than a comma? When I was looking at it, looked like 13,000, so missing a 0. So if we can just put that in there, it's little, but just in case this is the document we use to send out to our whānau. Kia ora.
Oh, okay. You must have a printing.
It's
I
commas.
got $13 on mine.
It's a comma, not a full stop.
I'll correct that.
Maybe just a charge for me then.
Good to have some young eyes watching us. That's the main thing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a mover. Do we have a mover? We did, didn't we? Yes.
Yeah.
Councillor Rangahika and seconded by Councillor Savage. All those in favour, aye? To the contrary, carried. Thank you very much. Item 7 on the agenda is adoption and consultation document for the proposed Kara District Council annual plan on pages 67 to 70.
Through you, Your Worship, I notice on page 8 of the actual document itself that there are 2 places for other revenue amounts, but when I have a look at the corresponding table on page 68, there is only 1.
Through you, Your Worship, I'd like to take this opportunity to give Tanya a big thank you for all the work she's done. She's working long hours to get this document out. That particular document that Councillor Julian is referring to was an older version. It had been noted that error where we had 2 lots of revenue in there. That's now been corrected. So apologies that you've got that version. You will get an updated version, but thank you for noticing, which shows you actually read the document.
That's what we're here for.
Just a question,
Thank you.
Peter, on the document that I just received this morning, we've got, and I spoke to Tony about this late last night, so it may not have come out as, there's just on pages, excuse me for a minute, while I just get the right pages here. We've got the increase is going to be 3.4%. Well, that's our recommendation. And then on the page 11, we've got a percentage increase of 3.2 maximum. Can you just tell me why that is? Why there's a? I know it's only 0.2, but I want to know why we've gone with that.
So what page is that?
It's on page 11. It's on the indicative rates table.
Oh,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yep. Sorry, a little slow on the uptake. I've got it now.
No, it's
Each year we update our rating database with increases if there's been any more development gone on, any buildings gone up, and as a consequence, our rating database increases. So even though the rates amount that we want overall is an increase of 3.4, because we had additional capital value added to our rating database, it means that we don't necessarily need to rate individual properties that amount. Does that make sense? The rating database, as more ratepayers come on board or more capital value come on board, it means what gets charged to the individuals reduces.
Gotcha.
And that's what the council's been working towards for the last at least 5 years, is increasing that rating database.
Okay, no, that's all good. It's just when you have a lay person just come along and ask those questions, you need to have some answers. You need to know what they're talking about. Yep. So thank you for that.
Through your worship,
Yes.
Your Worship, the question is the same on pages 67 and 69 under 2 background and 4 significance. Yeah, and just acknowledge your work too, Tanya, with the document that you sent for some midnight reading. Thank you. Just on here, just our process, we've got down to the bullet points under background. We've got hearing considerations on the 7th of July, and it's repeated again, but we've got deliberations on the 14th of July, according to our draft annual plan, and that flows into item 4, where it actually states we're going to hear and consider on the 7th and the 14th. I just think we need to be clear on that. That probably doesn't reflect what was in the draft annual plan.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. The amount of time that you're required to hear people that may want to speak to their submission will be dependent on the number of submissions that we receive and the number of people that want to come along. So the usual process would be on the 7th, we would hear anyone that wants to speak to their submission, and then a week later we'd go and consider all the submissions and make the decision. And that's what's been put on the annual plan. For the purposes of the report, I just said, look, we may hear and consider the submissions at both meetings. Because if we don't get a lot of submissions, we'd probably wrap that up in one day on the 7th.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. If you just referred to how it's been stepped out on the annual plan and the boxes, it's quite clear and deliberate about, but then it says both in this report. That's all I'm alluding to. Okay. And I'd just also like to an acknowledgement in the Audit and Risk Committee, Chair Jones alluded to pushing out the date for the rates for the first round.
The due date, correct?
Yeah, just like to acknowledge that has been signalled.
Certainly that would be the recommendation of staff that the first due date be delayed for a couple of weeks. I think to the 4th of September, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Worship. And if there's no other, I'm happy to move that recommendation. If there's no other.
Just one more, Councillor Iron. Just a bit of education for me, Hano. On page 67, all at the bottom where the asterisk is, it says includes water by meter. Maybe it's the word by, that water by meter, it's totally different from water meters, because I know we don't have those. So just asking if that refers to water meters.
That's right. So we have commercial properties.
For
example,
thank goodness.
We use a lot of water washing off.
I thought it was residential as well.
No, this is for our larger users. Two properties.
Thank you,
We do have 2 properties as residential, but this is for the mayor and his friends. We take as much money of them as we can.
and ask that, because as his worship has alluded to in lots of meetings, no question is a stupid question. So I thought I'd better ask it. Kia ora.
Excellent. So, is there any other questions of clarification on that adoption of the consultation document? There be none. We have a mover, Councillor Iron. Do we have a seconder of that, please?
Happy to second, Your Worship.
Seconded by Councillor Tanui. I put that to you. All those in favour, aye. The contrary, carried. Thank you very much. Right, now item 8 on the agenda. Civic Assurance AGM on pages 71 to 84.
Just through you, Your Worship, when looking at the directors on the board, and I'm not usually worried about this because it's the best person for the job, but I note that they all happen to be males, and reading through the CVs of the 2 new females, they certainly could bring quite a different perspective to the committee. to the outfit, and so I think we should seriously look at putting in the 2 women. If we don't, I'd like to put in Louise and say, I think it's Ellen Gray, and that would put out Basil.
Okay. Any discussion?
Through your worship, yeah, when the chips were down with this crowd, yeah, we've stuck with them. I'm probably polar opposite to Councillor Julian. I'd support, well, the incumbents who won't be the incumbents, but who might be the incumbents, Morrison and Gray, and I support the recommendation on those merits. Thank you.
Through the Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Rangeka.
I don't know if you can see me, but I certainly can hear you. My concern to Councillor Julian's comment was I'm not too keen on gender-based appointment.
No.
Mine is more so the merits that you bring to the position. I'll just have a little bit of difficulty as to picking because of one gender. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.
If I could just
Yes.
add to my comments, I agree entirely with what Councillor Rangahiki said, and I thought I'd made that in my statement, but I just sort of feel that we could do with some new blood, and unfortunately 2 women have been presented for us to choose from, and they seem to have some very good attributes that would benefit. If they were male, I'd be going for them as well.
Good comment. Any other further discussions?
Your worship, it's $1 each way, so we suppose we better get some other comments, just saying.
Well, the only comment I can make is I've known Basil for 100 years, like we've been around for a long, long time. Although we've butted heads over a number of issues in my career in local government, he brings a wealth of knowledge. And when the chips were down for Civic, they pretty much held it together, and they have been through some difficult times. I'm not saying that I don't have a problem with the 2 ladies on there. I'm just wondering why Christchurch has opted to go with both of them. That's all. And it's sort of, yeah, it's a bit of a concern, but never mind. Like Councillor Iron said, it's going to be $1 each way, I'm afraid. Looks of it, because not a lot of people know these people around that have been around for a long while. But Basil has certainly been there for a long time, and as I say, he brings a wealth of knowledge into the game.
Through your worship, do we use these people for our KiwiSaver for our employees?
You better ask Peter about that one, Peter, please.
Look, I don't believe so, but they manage the risk pool, which is an insurance fund, and also another fund there as well, which I've loaded. Oh, the LAP, which insures our infrastructure. So that's their main activity now.
But we don't use either of those. We don't use the risk pool or the LAP. We do something else. Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. We no longer use that.
I was mainly asking because of the remit put in by the Christchurch City Council.
Okay. Okay. Well, we have a recommendation there, and I think it's we could talk about this till the cows come home, but there is a recommendation that the council determine the response to the following issues of the AGM, receive the annual thing, approve the appointment of 2 directors candidates Basil Morrison, A. Gray, or J. Crawford, or Al Edwards, appointment of Auditor General. So it's up to you. I would go with what we've got, but I'm just one person because I don't know the other two. I don't know them at all. I have to say, and I'm not trying to be a stick in the mud, and I'm certainly not sexist about this. If they're the right people for it, then that be it. But I don't know them. One has good credentials. The other one, maybe. So how do people feel about it?
Your Worship, for me, I would support retention of Basil and Anthony, just based on their experience. I do like that the civic assurance has been set up in the best interest of local government. There's some familiarity and they understand the sector needs, the sector knowledge there, so I would just support that. And also the appointment of the Auditor General for the same reasons, that sector knowledge for the challenges and perhaps opportunities for all councils across New Zealand. If you have some insight into that, then you can speak further to it. So that I would put my support towards that.
Yes, Your Worship, I would also endorse what Councillor Tanui has said. I think there's merit in retaining the existing tried and true, and they've been doing a job from everything I can see. So for myself, I don't see any reason to change.
Okay. Any other comments?
For you, Your Worship, I would be, again, retaining the two. I would like to see some new blood. So Basil Morrison would be for me and Louise Edwards.
Through the Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Ring.
I'm in support of Basil Morrison and Louise Edwards. Certainly great CVs in front of us, but I'm just thinking a little bit of change could be great also.
Okay.
Thank you.
For you, Your Worship, also support Basil Morrison and Anthony Gray, entirely based on the CVs that were forwarded, which showed an extensive wealth of knowledge and experience that they have held in the space. That's the only reason, is because of that experience, and I don't know them. So I did Google to see. I thought maybe if I had a face, it would breathe alive the CVs. But I still have left my recommendation based on the CVs that we received.
Sure. Goodness, is anybody keeping numbers of these? I've lost count already.
So we've got 7 at the moment for Morrison, 5 for Gray, and 2 for Edwards.
5 for Gray and 2 for Edwards. So we're looking pretty much like Basil and Gray. Is that right?
Yes, excellent.
Okay, well, I'll put that to you, I think, is otherwise we could sit here and talk about this till tonight. And, you know, I appreciate Councillor Julian's view and Councillor Rangihicker. A little bit of new blood always comes to light at the coal face when they're needed, and there's certainly all their CVs are pretty good. But if that's the case, it looks like we're bending more towards Morrison and Gray. So I'll put that to you. All those in favour of Basil Morrison and Anthony Gray to be our representatives on Civic? And those against? One, how many got? 1, 2, is it?
We've got Councillor and Councillor Rangihicker again.
So, Pari, we've got Basil Morrison and Anthony Gray, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So it's at this point in time, looks like we've got the results of our civic insurance representatives will be Basil Morrison and Anthony Gray. That's what we'll put to the AGM. Okay.
Happy to move the recommendation 1, 2, A, B, Morrison, Gray and C, Your Worship.
Okay, we have a mover by Iron. Do I have a seconder, please?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor King. I'll put this to you. All those in favour, aye. The contrary, Councillor Julian and Councillor Rangihika. Thank you very much. Okay, moved. Item 9 on the agenda is results of the 2020 NRB survey on pages 85 to 87. Any comments, please?
Your Worship, I'd just say taken as read, did the math on this, and the figures are very similar. There's a whole 1%. It's how everybody feels on a particular day for quite a considerable cost. If you've had a bad hair day, I know what that's all about. Yeah, you know, your results could swing either way. So yeah, those are my comments. Thank you.
I'd just like to make one comment, and why I know a little bit of some of my family were involved in this questionnaire, and you're exactly right. And to be pulled away from your meal can make you a bit grumpy and say some things about your favourite councillors and mayor at times. And but I have to say that I've always questioned NRB surveys. I like secret shoppers rather than NRB surveys. These are generic questions. They're ridiculously put to you when you're on the telephone, and as I say, they're rather not timed. You're exactly right. It can swing either way, and all it is just to say, well, we've had a survey. I'd like to do some costings on this. I believe that if you've got a secret shopper or a secret participant around, they will give you a heck of a lot more feedback than what you will get from these. But staff have always gone with NRB surveys, and I know that one particular councillor and I, we battled furiously about this for years, and I think now is the time to have a change, and I guess we've just gone through that with the last item. But it's all about costs, and I think NRB surveys, you like it or you lump it, really. Some discussion, please.
Your Worship, sorry, I think that, and this applies generically to surveys, it's going to become more and more difficult because obviously less and less people are on landlines. So I'm not sure how they're going to reach all the people that have just got mobiles, and how valid these surveys are going to be in the future.
Yep, exactly.
Through you, Your Worship, I speak in support of Councillor Sparks. I do appreciate the discipline of actually getting feedback and measuring performance, but I do wonder about the value of how that's being done at the moment. When I have a look at the numbers, 7,000 people, 205 involved in the survey, 20 of those 205 in a certain age group. I'm interested in options going forward of how this can be done better so we can get value. Thank you.
I would concur with both the previous speakers. I think now's a good time to look at other ways.
Okay, so we have a recommendation anyway, and we have a survey which was come back. I have to say that under the circumstances, I think it's scored pretty well, really. But it was the way that it was conducted, I didn't think was 100% well done. But I don't know if anybody else has had any experience with it, but I know my family were both in my house here in Kawerau, and family were involved in the survey. So poor old Mayor really got a hammering that night. But you know, it is questionable the way, and some of the questions and the way they put them are just really ridiculous, to be honest.
Would that be an action item, Your Worship?
I think it should be. I think.
Around exploring what other, not
Yep.
so much surveys, but qualitative, quantitative assessments can be used.
And I think we need costings around that too, so we know what's going on, not just staff.
The positive, what I noticed, to Your Worship, is a positive from this is a lot of the areas that we are seeking improvement in the public also agreed needed improvement are where the big spends are going that have already been passed for follow-up. So that's what I noticed. The areas that had an increase or had a decrease, those were the areas we're putting money into. So that's validated, but also support looking at other alternatives.
Yep, fine. Okay, so do we have a mover for the recommendation, please? Councillor Savage, do I have a seconder? Councillor Sparks, I put this to you. All those in favour, aye. To the contrary, carried. Thank you very much. Right, and item 10 on the agenda, the last item, is adoption of smoke-free public places on pages 88 to 93. Can I just make a comment here, Sandra? A lot of work goes into these policies. Excuse me, I've just dropped my agenda. Yeah, I think we're going on the right track. We can't police it, and the only thing that terrifies me now is if people are not smoking, that they're polluting us with vape. And I think I see a car going down the road, and I think the blooming thing's on fire. There's that much vapor coming out of them, so it's a bit of a concern, really, that people are not smoking nicotine, but boy, they're puffing back their vape, and I don't know whether there's some good stuff in it or bad stuff, but that's just me. I don't smoke anyway. So, but congratulations to you, Sandra. You've done a good job. And so we have a recommendation there, please.
Just through you, Your Worship.
Yes.
On page 93,
Yes.
we still have Te Ariki Place Reserve in there. That's no longer a reserve.
True.
It's no longer Te Ariki Place either.
No.
Yep. Okay. Any other comments? There being none, we have a recommendation there, please.
I'm happy to move the recommendation with the correction.
Okay. So we have a mover, Councillor Julian. Go with the recommendation. The council adopts the smoke-free public places policy as presented, effective from the 1st of June 2020. Do we have a seconder for that, please?
Excuse me, that wasn't what I moved. I moved the recommendation with the amendment, which was to remove Te Ariki Place Reserve.
Okay, all right, okay. So we moved it. Somebody removed that. We remove Te Ariki Place, please. Yep. Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Iron. All those in favour, aye. To the contrary, carried. Lovely. So we have a recommendation that the report adoption of the smoke-free public places policy be received, and the council adopts the smoke-free public place policy as presented, effective from 1st of June 2020. We have a mover for that, please. Oh, no, I can't see you all putting up your hands. So did anyone put the, yeah, Councillor Rangahicker. Okay. Does Councillor Tanui second that? Oh, sorry. My apologies, Councillor Tanui. I'll certainly
Your Worship, does that does that include what Councillor Iron and I moved with the alteration?
Yes, please.
So we've already moved it.
No, no, sorry. You just backed me up and said that's not what you moved, Councillor Julian.
Yeah.
Yes, and we moved that we changed that Te Ariki Place one. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But when you spoke about the recommendations after we had agreed to move Te Ariki Place, that didn't, to me, it didn't come into it. I could be wrong. I'm quite happy to stand corrected.
Chris, can you just step in here and just make sure we're on the right track, please? Chris Jensen.
I'm not sure why you've put it to me, Your Worship.
You're studying yourself on the White Cliffs of Dover. You're not
the way in which you normally conduct business, as long as you have a mover and a seconder, and it's understood what the resolution is, then that's perfectly fine.
Okay. Well, I thought we did know what it was first, and then I was hauled up about the namesake. So if everyone's happy with what we've moved, that we're including the Te Ariki with the, is that what you want, Councillor Julian?
Yes, yes.
Right, okay. So we do have a mover and we do have a seconder, and I put it to you, all those in favour, aye, and everybody has done that, so it's carried. Thank you very much. Very confusing list. So, Putty.
Julian is moving the recommendations with the amendment, and Councillor
With the amendment.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
My apologies. Okay, that's us. So it's a wrap, and a thank you very much, councillors. I hope that, and I'm not that I haven't enjoyed Zoom meetings. I have, and we've all gained a heck of a lot of experience playing around with these things. Look at Councillor Savage; he's wrapped with it now, and he just won't do away with it. But can I say that it's also nice to be doing face to face, and particularly with our public and our staff. So hopefully next council meeting we'll be down to level 1, because if we're not, we'll still be doing it on Zoom. We've got a responsibility to adhere to the rules, and so I'd like to call this meeting to finish, please. And if everybody else would like to come back, I believe it's at 2 o'clock, Putty, is that right?
That's
Where is
correct.
she? Yeah, so everyone will be joining us again at 2 o'clock for a workshop. So all the very, very best, and we'll see you then. So thank you very much. Thank you to the public, those people who have been watching. It's much appreciated. We've had some pretty positive feedback, 1 or 2 negatives, but that's always the case. You'll always get the knockers and the naysayers, but that's okay. I think under the conditions, the staff have worked very, very well. Thank you to Tanya to get that draft annual plan out to us last night. She rang me, I think it was about 8:45 when she rang me. She said, do you want me to deliver it? I didn't know she was even in town still. But all the very best, Tanya, thank you. It's been much appreciated, the work that's gone into it. So that's it. I call the meeting to a close. Thank you very much. Cup of tea time.